Hello and welcome back to the Automate Your Dream podcast show. And huge thanks to Devan Dillard for taking the time to come onto the show so we can have this discussion on story and why it's so important and how so many people get it wrong, right? So dive in, enjoy, let us know your thoughts on what we have to say and on what we cover in this discussion. So thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Did you know that there are millions of new ideas created every single day by a special group of people who call themselves entrepreneurs? More importantly, some of these ideas can literally change the world. But sadly, most of these ideas will never develop into what they were meant to be. Too many struggle with simply having enough money, time, and energy to maintain the intentional focus required to nurture their ideas from concept to reality. If you've experienced that feeling of losing hope, you're not alone. That's why I created this podcast, so we can talk about the tools and strategies that will help you improve your revenue, regain your time and energy, so you can unlock the impact your dream was meant to have. My name is David Anderson, and welcome to the Automate Your Dream podcast. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Automate Your Dream podcast. David Anderson here, and I am excited about today's discussion. As you know, I've been on a mission to help entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, with finding ways to be more efficient with their time so they can increase their revenue, right? And there's a lot of pieces when it comes to really, promoting your baby, which is your dream, your business, right? So a lot of what I've been saying is, in order to automate anything, you really have to understand, what it is that you're trying to do. What is your process, right? And especially if you're trying to build something, what is your story? And so that's why I'm super excited for today's guest. Today's guest is from Simply Social Agency, and he runs the Facebook group Online Coaches Blueprint for high ticket coaches. And he has been recently talking more about the power of story, and that is actually what caught my eye. And especially when he started talking about Russel Brunson's hook story offer framework on how it's broken because it's not complete. It's an incomplete framework. And I was like, word, okay, we got to talk. So it is my honor to welcome for today's discussion on story, and we're gonna deep dive into some other things as well. But please welcome Mr. Devan Dillard. Welcome to the show, my man.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I've been, I've been watching your work for a little bit, as I've been getting more active on Facebook, because really before this year, I kind of blew Facebook off. I didn't really use it for personal. I really didn't use it for business. I just really wasn't using it. And so, yeah, long story short, as I, join more Facebook groups and just looking at what's out there, we cross paths, and your content has been very intriguing. And, just like I said, with like the hook story offer framework, I was like, ooh, dropping some bombs out here. So I'm, if you could just kind of tell us real quick, kind of a little bit on your background, like when did you, decide to start an agency, and what are some of the things that you do to help people out?
Yeah. So first off, I've spent almost a decade in marketing and advertising. I started my career off working as a marketing coordinator for a small moving company. Well, not a small moving company, but a franchise of a big moving company locally, and was just kind of thrown into it. At that time, I had just freshly graduated college with a business degree and had run a few freelance businesses. They weren't digital, but knew that business was what I wanted to do. And when I got there, the guy was like, "Hey, you're pretty clean cut. You can communicate pretty well. We're going to put you in a marketing position." And I'm like, I know nothing about marketing at all, like KPIs, all that, nothing. And the first thing he gets me to do is start a Facebook page for the franchise. And I hadn't had a Facebook page for 3 years. So I don't even know what the platform is looking like at this point. And this is 2013 or 2012. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just do it. And so I reactivated everything, got everything started. And that was my reintroduction to digital marketing. And from there, I learned a ton about just Facebook ads, social media marketing. I got trained up by the company's like head social media person, and for about 2.5 years. And I did in-person grassroots marketing, but I also did the digital marketing there too. So for 2 years, that was my foundation. Even though in that 2 years, I didn't really learn a ton, because when I got my next job at an agency, I really learned what digital marketing was about. The automations, the behind the scenes things that I didn't know was even possible. I learned a lot about Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google ads, and I spent a lot of time diving into my own journey, learning this stuff. And about 8 months after that, I left that job. Well, actually, I got let go because they didn't have any permanent positions for that position, for what I was doing. And I was 2 months out of work. But in that 2 months, and this is kind of where my faith comes in, I was praying one night, and literally God like downloaded a business plan into my head. And I just started typing it out on my phone. Like it had, but it was full of stuff that I didn't know how to do. It was website design, building out campaigns, like all this kind of stuff that I'd never had my hands in when I was doing these jobs. And that sparked me to go on a learning journey, a learning curve. This was 2017, end of 2017. And I learned everything, bro. I literally got lucky because lynda.com had just come out, and they sent me an email for a 30-day subscription, like a free one. In 30 days, I watched over 50 hours of learning material in 30 days. I built 2 websites in that 30 days. I didn't have a job. So there was nothing for me to do. So I had nothing to do but learn. I was staying with my parents, me and my wife and 2 kids, or 3 kids at that time. We have 5 now. And I was learning all day. I sat at the laptop all day learning and doing stuff and implementing things and taking notes. And in about 30 days, because of all the stuff I learned and didn't know that Lynda had a partnership with LinkedIn, an agency reached out to me because they saw all the stuff that I was doing on my profile, all the tags and awards I was getting. And they were like, okay, we're going to hire this guy to be our digital strategist. And I came on, and they invested probably over $10,000-$15,000 into my education when it came to advertising.
Awesome.
Yeah, they bought me courses. They put me in front of people that were been in the game for 10, 15 years. And that's where I got my chops when it came to like copywriting, storytelling, and just doing advertising and marketing at a very high level. And after that, the guy ended up firing me, not because I wasn't doing well, but he told me this. It was a Friday, bro. I had started doing freelancing on the side, and a local agency that was friends with the owner, he was like, I want to bring you on as our ads buyer full time. And I'm like, I got a full-time job. Like I can do part-time. But he's like, no, he's like, whatever they're paying you, I'll pay you more. And I didn't accept it because I was like, I like my job. I like where I'm at. And I wanted to be a business owner. So that was my next jump. And literally on a Friday, the day after he made me the offer, on that Friday, the owner of where I was at, he brought me to his office right after work, right as I was walking through his door. He called me in and he was like, hey, Devin, man, I need to talk to you real quick. And we do this pretty often because I talk to the owner every day. And he's like, I've been kicking this can around for a while, man, but I'm gonna have to let you go. And I'm like, what? What? I've made us like 6-7 figures worth of leads and like all this, like I'm doing all this work. And he's like, you're an entrepreneur, man. He's like, I can't pay you to do my work and to do your work. He was like, you're gonna be okay. And this was like November or October, right before holidays, bro. I got let go. And he was like, you're gonna be all right. He's a young guy. He's like 4 years older than me. And I was like, cool. I was like, I already know I know what my decision is now. I'm going to take the contract. So like that was another God moment where I was like God kind of made the decision for me. He was like, you're gonna go take this contract because that's what's next for you. And so that's when I really got into the coaching realm, because with that agency, I worked with high 6-figure and 7-figure coaches, helping them grow their businesses using advertising and social media. So that's where I got my introduction to this online coaching world. That was like 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And a year after that, I started my own coaching business. And I was like, I have so much to give. I was like, I got to take this opportunity to build my own thing. So that's where I'm at today, brother. And I help people online, tell their story in a powerful way where they can generate leads on social media and build their high-skill coaching business.
So that's, wow, what an amazing story, man. So for because there's a lot of people who, they struggle with that decision to make the jump. So you mentioned that, I caught that, your faith, I'm sure had, a lot to do with that, as well. But once you made that dive, I guess, what were some of the maybe self-limiting obstacles that you had to fight through to make that jump?
For me, it was not wanting to put myself in a precarious situation, knowing that I had a baby on the way. I had number 4 on the way at this time. And I'm like, we're about to have a new baby. The holidays are coming. It's already expensive. Life is already expensive. Do I really want to take this leap with an opportunity where I could lose everything? And that's a scary thing to do when you have the responsibilities that we have as dads, Mm-hmm. So I was very reluctant to put my family in that situation, because that's why I was doing freelancing, because I wanted to kind of build things up. But you never really build it up until you go all in. That's what I learned. It's like, it never pops off until you really make the decision that I'm leaving here. Like you said, at least set a date. Put in the 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month notice or something, right? and make sure that it's real. But I had never done that. I was like, I don't know, maybe next month. And that was really my biggest thing. I knew I could do it. I knew that I would eventually create success. I just didn't know how bad it would get before I would do it.
Got it. Okay. That's amazing. That's awesome. Props to you for doing that and building. You're still, I see that you're still building on what you started as well. So that leads me into this is the part where I've just been when you talked about how many hours that you're putting into learning, just so you can also see where I'm coming from. July was 10 years that I've been in business with my wedding event industry business, David Anderson Weddings, where I do weddings and corporate events. And I had been around special events since I was 13, starting around 13. I had a mentor and he was teaching me all kinds of things. See, and it really wasn't just about business, but life in general, talking about, you got to make sure that, you go to school and that you take care of your credit and, and all these things that, I actually wasn't even getting from my own family. Right. Yeah. And so, I was learning, he was teaching me things. He was teaching me about, special events and how to do things at a high quality, in a way to where, you care. And so then that way you're the more the obvious choice when someone is looking for, a very high class or high quality experience. Right. Yeah. And so long story short, he wasn't really passionate about DJing. And so I had the idea to start my own entertainment business because he was live music, so saxophone player, he could serenade, the couples, and he's good at it, right? And I'm not I'm a drummer, I'm a percussionist, but I never learned how to play sax or anything like that. So I thought, I was like, I can just start, the DJ business. He can do the live music, and then I can take care of, the DJ aspect. And so launched my business July 2011, and had my first event starting New Year's Eve that year. And then 2012 is when I first launched my first weddings. And very quickly, I realized I was missing a key element, the skill set of being a master of ceremonies. Because I wanted to be different, because a lot of the DJs in my area, they didn't have that element. I was focused on the wrong thing. I was focused on making sure that I had, I dumped in like $5,000 on a Pioneer Club, DJ system. I dropped another 5K on what was the top of the line at that time, professional Bose PA system. So it's like when I showed up, people were like, "Oh, that's an awesome DJ," before I turn anything on, right? Because the lowest
and all the stuff.
Pretty low. Let's face it, the bar's pretty low when it comes to DJ entertainment. And so, but very quickly though, I realized that it's like I'm not really different from anyone else, and so that's what sparked my really my hunger to get training on that. And there was a program that I had bookmarked it, because when I saw the price of admission, I was like, oh, there's no way in hell I'm doing this. It's like they want $1,500 for a 2-day workshop, and I got to fly out there. It's like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I bookmarked it. So later on, late 2012. So again, I realized very quickly this. So ended up finding what that bookmark was. It was a Marbecca husband and wife team out of Mammoth Lakes, California, who, they made it their life's mission to train those who want to perform at weddings and special events, to train them up to broadcast level master of ceremonies. And so signed up, flew out to Phoenix, was where they had the workshop. And it was a life-changing experience, because young little cocky me, was like, oh, okay, this will be easy. I signed up for their love story workshop, and it turned out to be an acting 101 class. And I was not ready for. It was 6 of us in the room, and we had there was a projector screen, there was a lectern, and there was a video camera. Yep. And each one of us had, they gave us 2 paragraphs of a story that we had to read. We have to actually bring it to life. Just 2 paragraphs out of a bigger story. And so, once it's your turn, you stand up in front of the group and you perform your 2 paragraphs of the story, and while you're being recorded. And then once you've gone through it, then you got a live critique. And then you sat down, and then the next person came up. So, and so once everyone has gone through, then guess what happens? They put the recordings up on the screen, and now you get to watch yourself. The nervous tics, the moving around, all the uhs and all the ugliness there for you to see, so you can come to terms with how others see you. And so you can come to terms with your performance and whether or not you're even being authentic in the story that you're portraying, right? And so that was a huge wake-up call for me, that I had a lot of growing and a lot of learning to do. And most people, after going through that experience, would have just, like, F this, I ain't doing this again, right? But I'm wired differently. I'm weird. And so I asked him, when's your next workshop? I'm not ready to take this one again, but the master of ceremonies, where I need to learn some basics, something as simple as mic control and body language and, and all that. It's like, yep, I need to do that. So long story short, I ended up taking their workshops, different tracks, different levels, 7 times over the next 7 years. Constantly stretching, putting myself in these, where they create a stressful environment for you, and they create a space for you to show up and fail. So then that way you're not showing up and failing in front of your clients with that. And as the years have gone on and I learned more and more, the feedback that I started getting from clients, from guests, was like, I've never seen anything. I've never seen a DJ do what you do, right? And especially putting the emphasis on even how to open an event, where that sets the tone, and to where I'm just giving a welcome, and then everyone's like, yeah, woo, woo. It's like, and that's where I'm creating that safe space for them to be able to be in a moment, so I can take them on this journey, and they will be willingly joining me along for the ride. And so fast forward to the year that everyone knows about, 2020, the year that was set up to be the best year in business for me, like legit best year, because you mentioned that I also do corporate events too. And so I had new corporate clients getting lined up, new contracts were coming up. It was exciting. I was like, yeah, right. And then, in fact, I was in January of 2020, I was in Chicago going through a Second City workshop. And for those not familiar with Second City, a lot of famous A-list actors and comedians have gone through Second City training. And we were going through storytelling and improv workshop, where we had to do crazy things like write a commercial in like 5 minutes, and like learning these frameworks to where you can basically, create a script and act it out, right? And be convincing with it. That was, the very first workshop I took was hard, right? And then that last one, it just took it to a whole nother level. Like, yeah. So anyway, but then after that, then, within the next few weeks, then you saw that, okay, this is something that's not going away, right? And now, I was facing a calendar that was all of a sudden seeing postponements, cancellations, rescheduling to 2021, and then seeing where it's like, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? Right. And it became really clear that, especially being in the events industry, obviously no one ever would have considered pandemic being able to shut it down. But then, it's just also one of those things where it really kind of woke me up to where it was like, okay, I need to start building something else, in the meantime, because ultimately in the end, doing events, I'm still trading dollars for my time, right? It's a lot of work. It's a lot of emotional, impact on your mental well-being and body and whatnot. And so that's actually what led me down the path of, I had seen for the last couple of years prior, Billy Jean is marketing his ads, popping up, and I'd watch him, I was like, he's entertaining, he's maybe one of the most offensive people you could follow, but he speaks truth, right? And so I finally had pulled the trigger on some of his courses, and at the same time I was like, okay, what are some things that I could do to generate some income? And so that's what birthed my Siouxland 360, and to do 360 virtual tours. But then also very quickly I realized, I'm still kind of trading dollars for time, which really the root reason why people or business owners are looking for virtual tours. They need more people to come into their location. They need more eyes on their business, right? And so since that's an online product, what are some other things that business owners they really need help with online? And then that's what led me to a chance encounter to get into the software and SaaS space, and ultimately what led me to start developing the Automate Your Dream. And all throughout this, I have known as well that story is something that is key. It's the glue that holds everything together. And if you don't have a great story, people are going to give two craps about what it is that you're talking about. And so when we're looking at Russel Brunson's hook, story, and offer, if you could tell us, when you mentioned that it's an incomplete framework, if you could just dive into that and share us and tell us why.
Yeah. to hit a couple things because I had them on my mind as you were talking. I actually used a acting 101 class to forego my oral communications class that I took 4 years because I put it on my calendar for 4 years in college, and I ended up dropping it every semester. And I ended up transferring to a literary arts school that had a acting 101 class that I could take instead. And there were only 7 people in there. And I was like, yes, this is better than 35, because I had a huge fear of speaking in public and speaking in front of people at that time. And I would sweat walking into the oral communications class, seeing 35 people. I'm like, I'm not talking in front of all these people.
Right.
So, yeah. But Billie Jean is actually the first person where I learned story for ads. And I'll break down why. I say what I say about Russel Brunson's because of what I learned and saw in Billie Jean. It's not that he teaches story, like he doesn't really teach story, but there was a period of time, if you've been following him, where he would fix people's ads on YouTube. Right. And that was like his thing. He would just bring people on live on the call. He would pull up their ads and he would like fix them. What I noticed from watching, because the owner of the agency I worked for bought that course for me. That was one of the investments he made for me, was Billie Jean's course. A lot of them, like 3 of them. Dope. And so you would see that he wasn't just like changing wording in the ads. He was adding narrative to the ads. Every time he fixed somebody's ads, they usually sucked because there was no narrative. And he would add one. He never said that though. He was like, oh, you need to add this, this, and this. And I just noticed like he kept adding stories. That's all he would add, was like a story. Okay. And so I was like, I'm going to start doing that in my ads. And when I started writing stories in the ads that I was running for the company, our cost per lead, like it went 50, 60% down just from adding stories to it. And I was talking to 65 plus people that I have no understanding of. I had to do a ton of research, but when I added stories to the ads and we added stories to the landing page, it completely changed the game.
So you started doing, in a sense, some story hacking.
Kinda, yeah. For real. Because I didn't know how to write stories for 65 plus. Like I was 27, you know? So when I started really studying story, which was almost now 8-9 months ago, I started really diving in and studying the elements of storytelling from Hollywood, from authors, and frameworks and formulas that they've been using for over 100 years. And I know, and I also studied some of Russel Brunson's storytelling because he always tells stories. Right. And everything he does, his YouTube, his ads, it's all storytelling. I would study his, and I saw some stuff that he wasn't teaching that he was doing. You know, they came from these other formulas that are age-old formulas that all the Hollywood blockbuster, box office hits use to create their storylines. And so I started paying attention to that and writing stories based on that. And I started going back to because when I first started ads for as a freelancer, hook story offer was the thing. Hook story offer. Let's just write a hook story offer. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And I would sit down in my laptop for hours. Like, I got a hook. I have an idea of a story. I don't know if this is actually good. It's like 3 paragraphs of some stuff I just kind of put and vomited. And then I got an offer. I don't really know if my offer sounds right. I don't know if it's messaged right or positioned right, but I got an offer at the end with a CTA, click here. And after about probably a year of going through that kind of copywriting, I was like, this is not working. Like, this just does not work. But I didn't know anything else because all I knew was Russel Brunson at that time. He was the only person I followed in the digital marketing space. And so fast forwarding to today, after learning all that I've learned, I know that other people struggle with that. Like people who come brand new into the digital marketing space, they go and find Russel Brunson because he's like the biggest name in the space. And they find his hook story offer and they go through his program. And when he breaks that down, it sounds great to a new person that's like, they don't know anything. And they're like, yes, this is the key, until they go and try to apply it. And they realize that there's so many nuances within that hook story offer that are absent that he's not teaching you. Which I don't put that against like Russell. He's a beast at storytelling. Like just watch him tell stories. You'll learn a lot. But I wanted to be able to fill a gap where I could help people use the right formulas taken from where Russell learned his and use them on social media, because people don't tell good stories on social media. They just like vomit out stories,
Yeah.
They do. I read them all the time. I'm like, that would have been a great story if, it might be good. It might give me, I might want to like give it a like, give it a heart, maybe even drop a comment, but it's not moving me to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Great stories move people to like want to know more about what you do, to be a part of what you're doing, to be a part of a mission. And if your stories aren't doing that, then it's probably because they're incomplete and they're broken.
Got it. And you help people. So you do workshops, right? So people can sign up and hire you to do a workshop. And so kind of like Billie Jean with fixing people's ads, I take it that's what you do, but with stories, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so that's a great segue because, gosh, what was it? Because I suck with time. Because when I had sent you a picture of this book, let's see, we're in October, so it might have been last month, some point maybe last month, because in August, I was in Denver at a small conference for a group that I'm in it's wedding business related, North American Collective, and it's a group of, I think we have 20 some wedding entertainers from across the US and Canada. And we were together in Denver this time for our annual huddle. And we had, it was just basically an opportunity for us to reconnect, after, in this case, it was like 2 years of being apart. And we also had speakers and presenters flown in from across the US to talk about different subjects. And so there's one presenter in particular who rocked the hell out of my world as he was talking about story. And I think what you were just talking about, he was also, it's kind of how he started his presentation, that there is a formula that Hollywood and all the major motion pictures use, and a lot of the big copywriters use, where it's the hero's journey, right? And there's some variations of this, but basically what Park talks about is how you have the hero, right? You have the hero of the story, and then there's they're in their natural environment, right? And then there's this calling, and then they refuse the calling. But then something happens, some conflict happens that forces them to go on this journey, right? But before they can go on the journey, then there's a guide that shows up that provides them with the tools, that they need to go on that journey. So they set off in the journey, right? And then in the journey, then they run into another obstacle, and they try to fight it, but then they lose tragically, right? And then there's that journey that they're taking on, self-discovery, to find that innermost courage. And then at the right time, they use the tools that they got from the guide to vanquish the problem, right? And then, they save the day, and then they come back home, and they're a changed person. Like, they're not who they were before. And because of that, they're compelled to leave on another quest, so then they can find their new normal, right? And this formula has been used over and over and over and over again. Star Wars is probably the biggest and greatest example of this, and they used it out of it, right? And that's how they're able to keep expanding. Yeah, and like it's like if you're an expert in this, or at least well versed in this, you can like predict what's going to happen, right? But with great storytelling, you can, if once you master that, you're able to do that, put in the twists and turns that'll still screw you up, right? And that's the whole point. It's to build those connections to where people are then also talking about your story and retelling that story, right? And getting more and more people involved and with that. And that's how powerful story can be. And so when we're looking at, So once you start getting familiar with how to, be good at writing a story, what really caught my attention with Park Howell, and his book is called The Branbury Witchery, and how to wield the story cycle system to craft spellbinding stories for your brand. And so the framework he teaches, it's to help you be an intentional storyteller, to where, once you master that framework, whether you have 7 seconds or 2 hours, you could tell the same story, in the effect of, if you're on an elevator with someone and they ask you, hey, what do? You could tell a powerful statement in 7 seconds, because you can't do a 30-second elevator pitch anymore.
Right.
It's like with whether it's passing by or on social media, TikTok is a great example of this. How much of an impact can you create in 7 seconds, right? And being able to kind of drill down all of what you do into 7 seconds, most people would be like, you can F off, man. It's like, what are you, just crazy? But if you can figure that out, and there's a process in this book, if you follow it, you can do that. And it is just, okay, you have story, right, getting good at it, but then it's like you're just slathering octane all over it and just lighting that bad boy up, right? And so just real, let's see here. So he teaches the and, but, therefore structure. And so basically, what that talks about is where you're establishing, a date, time, location, right, to begin the story, and you're establishing what's happening, and then the and is for, raising the stakes. And then you throw in the but, right? Here's the conflict. And so you put in that but statement, and then you follow that up with therefore, this is why this happens. And the therefore introduces the resolution. And so, for example, for weddings, if people were to ask me, it's like, oh, you DJ, awesome. Like, what do you do? Then, for example, for that, I can say that, the most, and actually, I'll just do like the 7-second thing. It could be like, hey, most couples want to have an amazing experience, but they don't know how to achieve that when hiring a DJ. Therefore, what I do is I partner with the couples to help them create unforgettable experiences. And that'll create memories that'll last years to come, whatever. That was maybe more than 7 seconds, but you get the drift, right? So it's like, oh, okay. So you're kind of establishing, the truth, right? Raising the stakes, introducing the conflict, the but, and then providing the solution, and it's that solution that you provide. And so he teaches you on how to first, it's like working out, like me going through the 75 hard. That's me kicking my butt. 8 days left. Oh man, 8 days left. But it's like working a muscle, right? And so, whether you're using body weight or dumbbells, you're working that muscle. So using, like the ABT, the and, but, therefore, using it in your everyday speech is what's it's going to take for it to come natural to you. So then that way, once you've built your story frameworks up, then everything else in your copywriting is going to come out naturally. You're not going to have to, I'm a Family Guy fan, I probably will never grow out of that. And there's a scene or a cutaway where Peter Griffin and the group, they're like, hey, let's start a band. Yeah, all right. So they buy all the instruments, whatever. And, they're like in their first practice and they're talking about what songs they should learn, whatever. They're like, yeah, whatever. And then it cuts away to where they have their first gig and they're about to play 1, 3, 2, 1. Oh my God, we forgot to learn a song. Right. And it is exactly like what you were talking about, how, just, with that framework, hook, story, offer, it's like, yeah, okay, I got the hook, right? Awesome. Sweet. All right, story. Ooh, well, let's see, which story? And, and then you kind of fumble through that. And then, and trying to connect that to whatever your offer is, or whatever that call to action is, right?
Yeah.
It's happened to me. I open up my laptop, I have, Google Doc open, and I sit there, 45 minutes and I'm stuck. I'm like, I don't know what to write, right? And so that's why, when you started doing those videos on that, and it was around the same time that I had met Park Howell, because he actually forced us to do a workshop as part of his presentation where we actually had to write out our ABTs. And then, as far as the hero's journey, he's consolidated it down to like a 10-step process. And so you're basically then, okay, now you're expanding on your story through these 10 steps. So then now you have created your brand story. You use that to create your brand story, right? Yeah. And then, because I know a lot of people are familiar with story branding, in that book, right? But he just kind of takes it that next step further. And so, I'm still working through it. I finished the book, but now it's going back through and implementing, everything that they teach in that. And so, and just like how you're talking about, again, how, you were, pouring through just an insane amount of information. That's been my year. I've been, learning everything, from funnel building to, automations to just, various aspects of digital marketing. And then all roads always led back to the story, being able to communicate this information in a way that'll make people care and want to connect, right? And interact and engage. And you're right, there's people who struggle with that as well, on that. So now, because I'm all about providing solutions. So that's a problem that you've identified, that you're helping people out with your workshops. What would be some free piece of advice that anyone who is listening in on this show could take and run away with? What's like a couple pieces of actionable advice that people can kind of take as homework?
I would say this, out of everything that you just shared, there's one thing that I've only read or come across one resource that actually talks about this, but it doesn't talk about it in a way for like solopreneurs and entrepreneurs who are online. But it's actually knowing what stories to share, because every story isn't meant for your social media, right? It has to have relativity. So and it has to have purpose. And when you look at social media, there are only two purposes behind your social media content. There's only two. If it doesn't fit in these two things, it's not worth posting. It's one that's connection. When I say connection, it's emotionally connecting with your audience, right? And two is authority. Is being able to build authority in the minds of your audience so that they see you as an expert and they give you permission to actually change what they believe. That's what authority is. Authority is them mentally giving you mental currency in their mind to change their belief, right? Because if you don't have those two, whatever story you tell, they're not listening. They don't feel you and they don't hear you. So they're not taking action. But if you do tell stories, and these are the three stories that I would tell. I actually did a series on my stories, my IG and Facebook stories about this. But one is telling stories about your successes, your client successes, the transformations that they've made. That's an authority type post. That's an authority type story. Telling stories about your hero's journey, right? But it doesn't have to be like the entire thing. Just the most important part that was transformational, that changed you into who you are today. Because people need to know that you're relevant, right? That relevancy needs to be there. So make sure that you're sharing that. And the thing is why I say don't share the whole thing, because for one, Facebook's not gonna give you enough characters to share the whole thing. And IG's definitely not gonna give you enough characters to do it. So you have to know which part to share. Right.
Would you agree that maybe it should be like the most high drama part, or like the highest energy part to
I think
capture their
that
attention?
I think you can capture the part that got you to where you are. So you give backstory, right? You can go as far back as you need to hit like where your roughest part was, right? But then you may skip some stuff in between there. Like the story I told you earlier about me, I didn't tell you everything, right? Like I didn't tell you about starting a network marketing business and failing at it miserably. Like I didn't tell you about doing Amazon, FBA. Like I didn't tell you about any of that stuff because it wasn't relevant at that time.
Right.
So you need to find things that are relevant and that's why you have to do the research on your clientele so you know what's relevant to their journey. So you share those pieces. So sharing that hero's journey, sharing the transformations, okay, and then actually sharing like your process. A lot of people don't do this. A lot of people feel like they need to kind of hide how they do their business, how they like whatever their process is for creating results for people. But you actually need to talk about it. And you need to like tie it into stories of like, how did you come up with that piece of your process? Like I talk about how I came up with my story selling framework. How did I come up with client recon, right? Which is a part of my process. I talk about the story behind that. I got that from Russel Brunson. Every part of his process, he has a story for it. Every book he's written, every SaaS product he's come out with, he has a story for that one thing, right? So you need to be able to craft stories for your process so that when they see it, they can emotionally connect to the power behind that piece of the process. And they can picture themselves using it.
Yes.
All right. So those are three things that I would say to leave you with is write stories about transformations from your clients so people know that you can do it for them. Write stories about the journey that you went through, the transformation, your hero's journey, and write stories about your process. If you can do that, you'll get a lot more connection with your audience and the dream clients that you're looking for on social media.
Boom. Mic drop. Awesome. So, man, there's been a lot of nuggets dropped in our conversation today. And, for those watching this or listening in, please let us know, what are some of the things that resonated the most with you? I mean, there's a lot that you're going to have to unpack, considering especially if a lot of what we covered and discussed is new to you, because I know what it's like hearing something for the first time and be like, wait, what? Wait a minute, you rewind it again and make sure that you got it down, right? So Devan, you're doing some amazing work. If you could tell us, where can people find you?
So I have a Facebook and IG, and you can find me on Facebook at Devan Dillard, and you can find me on IG at Simply Social _agency.
Awesome.
And I have a YouTube coming soon, but it's not quite ready yet.
Oh, the YouTube. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to check that out too. So there you have it, folks. Today's conversation on story. And it's a big deal. More and more business relationships, it's really going down that path, as far as being able to utilize story. And if you can't use story to connect with your ideal audience, with your target audience, our avatar, which we didn't really get into that, but we could save that for another time. And that's what's going to be key. That's going to be key to build a tribe that will promote you, through shout of mouth. Start paying attention to the companies that the commercials that they put on TV and social media. How emotional and how impactful some of these stories can be that are only 30 seconds long. If you can figure that out, if you can practice and keep at it, you can do the same thing. But it requires you to put in the work. It requires you to put in the time. So you got to be a go-getter, you know?
Yeah.
So with that, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. I hope you got a lot out of this, and we'll see you next time around. Cheers.